80 million pesos are being set aside for the training of Filipino athletes and their participation in the Southeast Asian Games to be held in Singapore in June this year. Philippine sports officials are confident that our athletes will bounce back from their dismal performance in the 2013 SEA Games in Myanmar. Freddie Abando reports.
It was a lackluster performance for the Philippines in the 2013 Southeast Asian Games in Myanmar. Of the 10 ASEAN countries competing in the biennial games, the country settled for 7th place. It's a major challenge for the Philippine contingent to improve their showing in the forthcoming Southeast Asian Games to be hosted by Singapore in June of this year. Philippine Sports Commission Chairman Richie Garcia bear that full contingent will be fielded in 27 sporting events. The government has allocated 80 million pesos for the training and the participation of the athletes.
In the Southeast Asian Games, from the preparation to the competition, it usually goes up to about 80 million. 80 million pesos to 100 million because we spend 100 in Thailand. But we have compressed it. The annual budget of DBM, or the general appropriation, is only 30 million for participation. So then you prepare them, you train them, you give them all the equipment and support. So that goes up to about 80 million.
The quest for gold and glory will be an uphill climb for the Philippines, since Singapore, which will host the games, has dropped from the competition schedule several sports events which will deliver medals for the Philippines. These sports are wrestling, wushu, taekwondo, karate, and judo. Singapore has included events which will deliver medals for their athletes. Singapore is hoping to finish in the top 5 of the competitions.
As far as ranking is concerned, I think it's going to be 6th or 7th, But our athletes will definitely perform better. They are more prepared. But the sports that we want to win will not be there, like billiards. We have been dominating pool or billiards for many years in the Southeast Asian Games. Now, they limited it only to 2. So they removed around 4 medals. So, this is the measuring stick of the general public on how Philippine sports is. But then, how can you measure the performance of the athletes if there is no competition in the particular sports? Taekwondo, you remove 6 events. Never heard of. But then, it's being done.
Garcia has no doubt the country's athletes are better trained to compete with the best and brightest athletes in the Southeast Asian region. Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam are the big 4 in the region. Since 2005, when the Philippines won the overall crown in the Manila SEA Games, its performance has been a steady decline since. The worst was 7th in Myanmar.
They maintained the sports, but they played around with the events. So this seemed to be a trend in the Southeast Asian Games that hosts will play around with the events rather than stay with the Olympic sports. Like, for example, wrestling is an Olympic sport. And you remove that. It should not happen. So I was proposing to the Philippine Olympic Committee that maybe it's about time the Federation of Southeast Asian countries will sit down and decide the future of Southeast Asian Games. Because if this continues, then as a representative of the government, using government funds, maybe it will be a better idea if we just forget the Southeast Asian Games.
Garcia called on the Philippine Olympic Committee to demand from the SEA Games Federation to address the practice of host nations to drop Olympic events and replace it with indigenous sports just to improve their performance in the biennial games. For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abando reporting.